It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set!
Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands, heard around the world on the iHeart Radio application. Well, at the Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament, Clemson, of course, just a couple of days ago, falls in heartbreaking fashion to the Virginia Tech Hokies on a last-second three-point shot at the buzzer. The Hokies advanced on last night and then took care of the number 2 seed, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So let's think about this for a minute. I'm not telling you Clemson would have beat Notre Dame, folks, okay? Pump the brakes. But that was exactly what was on the line against Virginia Tech. The opportunity. And as I said yesterday, the results and the way that game played out for me as a Clemson Tiger basketball supporter was the microcosm of what we have become accustomed to as not only fans of the Clemson Tigers basketball team, but also covering this Clemson Tiger team. So yesterday's results at the ACC Tournament, Duke knocked off Syracuse 88-79. That was before we went on the air. You also had Miami knocking off Boston College 71-69 in overtime while we were on the air. Virginia Tech pretty much took it to the Fighting Irish, 87-80, the final score. I don't know that it ever really felt that close. Virginia Tech advances, and then North Carolina hammering Virginia. Get this, the Cavaliers, 13 first-half points in that game. They were down 20 at the break. That leads us to today's semifinal matchups at 7 o'clock, Miami and Duke facing off up in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. Then at 9:30, Virginia Tech takes on North Carolina. Now, I called yesterday's show a microcosm of what we have become accustomed to as it pertains to Clemson Tiger basketball, and that's true. A lot of heartbreak. And the biggest heartbreak for me took place back in 1990 when Tate George knocked off the Clemson Tigers in the Sweet 16. Here's what that call sounded like back in the day.
Now we're ready to go. Here goes the long pass with 1 second to go. The shot. Yes! The shot's going to count. The shot by Tate George wins it.
That moment for me, one of the toughest. I sat in front of that television watching the CBS broadcast, telling my dad, we have to call. We have to do something. We've got to let somebody know there's no way he got that shot off. Tate George. Well, anytime you talk about that call, you think about Clemson basketball coach Cliff Ellis. Ellis, of course, still coaching the game. He's down at Coastal Carolina, coaching the Chanticleers. But I had a chance to sit down with him not all that long ago, quite frankly. I think it was back in 2020 maybe. And just an awesome interview. Thought we'd re-rack that for you here on a Friday afternoon, given the fact that all you Tiger fans are still heartbroken from the way Clemson fell in the ACC Tournament just a couple of days ago. In similar fashion, some might say, to how that Clemson Tiger team lost in the Sweet 16. Coach Cliff Ellis joining the program. Coach, hope you're doing well. Glad to have you back on the show that shakes the Southland. How are you?
Well, like everybody else, trying to stay safe. Hope everybody else is. It's a different time.
Oh, listen, I'm 43. I got a feeling my kids who are 7 and 10 will talk about this for the rest of their lives, and not because of, they were out of school by any means, but simply because I think they're beginning to really grasp just how significant this is.
Well, it is. I've not seen it in my lifetime, and it's basically paralyzed not only our country but our world. And I know we've got people that are smart enough to figure this out, and we need to get the vaccine that can master this and be able to move on. But certainly, we have to be smart in the process, and we have to utilize the medical knowledge that we have throughout the country and the world, and try to beat this thing. And I think we will. We've done it with things like polio. We've done it with different type of viruses, and I think we'll do it with this.
Coach Cliff Ellis here on Clemson Sports Talk. And Coach, I think about so many players out there, from the baseball guys who just got their season started to the basketball players who were potentially in the middle of conference tournaments and no NCAA tournament. Being in this sport as long as you have been, how was it painful, I guess, to see the NCAA tournament not take place for you?
Well, it's a reminder of what we're facing. When you start canceling postseason tournaments, it hits you in the face. I think a lot of people didn't realize how serious this situation was, and let's realize that basketball is a game, and what we're dealing with is with life. And I say that because one of the people that we almost lost, it came from the Clemson family. When I was at Clemson in the early years, Maury Hanks was one of our assistants. He was a graduate assistant. He's now with the Detroit Pistons. He liked to have lost his life to this virus, and he's come out of it. But it was a very touch and go situation. So when you see these type of situations happen, yes, it's tough not seeing postseason tournament, March Madness, a lot of things going, but it's just not worth the risk of the lives that are out there and facing it. And I know that within my coaching family, there have been people that have gotten hits, and I've lost a couple of not close friends, but people that I've known. Yeah. And it kind of hits home when that happens. So anyway, I know that it really hit home when Maury got sick, and I talked to him yesterday. And for those people that do know him, he's coming out of it doing well, but he's one of the very lucky ones because he had lost 70% of his lung capacity and was on a ventilator. And statistics show that when you go on a ventilator, 2 out of 3 people that go on the ventilator never make it through. So he's one of those that is very fortunate, but he's doing fine, and that's a blessing. So back to your original question, March, the postseason, it was tough. It was different. And we all have just kind of, without March Madness, you're constantly looking for something on the television. Now it's all replays, and of course Netflix is doing pretty good, but and they're doing pretty good. And I've watched more movies than I have in the last 10 years, but it's different. But our lives are more important than playing basketball at this time.
Yeah, it really put things into perspective. Again, sorry for the losses of those people that you did know, and I'm glad to hear that Mari's getting back on his feet. Now, let me ask you this, Coach. I want to shift gears just a little bit for Tiger fans and try to stay off of the COVID now as much as I can and move forward. But so you're at South Alabama. The Clemson job comes open. This is back in '84, I guess.
Correct.
How did that process, walk us through maybe the flirtation that Clemson had with you, et cetera, and how you ended up in Tiger Town?
Well, it's going to take me a little while. It's really a great story. I shared it actually this week with some people as far as how I got from one place to the other. But Dwight Rainey was an assistant AD at Clemson, and he and I had known each other through his ties at North Carolina Charlotte at the time, because he was a coach there and I was at South Alabama, and we all followed each other's career. I always admired the job that he and Bill Foster did at North Carolina Charlotte. He, I think, admired the job we were doing at South Alabama. North Carolina Charlotte, South Alabama ended up being in the same league. So there was just a following there. And when he called me, we were on a roll at South Alabama. I was the athletic director and basketball coach at the time, and we had been in the top 10, and we had been rolling, and we'd come off of a great year, and I think it's 20-something win season. We'd beaten Charles Barkley and Chuck Person at Auburn by 20-something points, and I had everybody coming back. And Dwight called me about the job, and my immediate reaction was, I think my program is better than Clemson at the time, and it probably was at that particular time.
Right.
But South Alabama was still not in the ACC or the SEC, and I talked to different people, and I won't call their names, but they're telling me, no, you don't need to be doing that. You don't need to be doing it. The more they said that, the more it made me want, because I'm a builder. I love to build programs. I love to build it. At Cumberland, South Alabama, Clemson, it needed building. But I'd gotten a commitment from a young man by the name of Vernon Maxwell. Now, Vernon Maxwell played in the NBA for years, and he was an NBA All-Star. So just picture that. So in 1984, I'm going to Gainesville, Florida, and that's where he lived. And I told Dwight that I wasn't interested at the time in Clemson. I go to Vernon Maxwell. Back in those days, there was not a fall recruiting period. It was all in the spring, and you could take it to their home and sign them. And I flew into Gainesville. Got off, went in. I was very excited, and I walked into Vernon's home, and he was sitting there with his mother. And as I walked in the door, they were sitting on the couch holding hands, and I could tell that something wasn't right. And she said, "Come here, Coach, and sit down." She said, "You've recruited Vernon harder than anybody. We love the job that you've done, and we love you, and we love your program. But Vernon has always wanted to go to the University of Florida." Well, I lost him on that day, and that had happened to me so many times to bigger schools,
right,
that immediately it hit me. I went straight to the Gainesville airport. I called Dwight up, and I said, "Dwight, I'm starting to have a little change of heart here. If you're still interested, then I will come up and talk to you about it." He said, "We'll have a plane in Atlanta, Georgia. It'll pick you up, and you'll be at Clemson tomorrow." So I flew to Atlanta. So my intention was to go to sign Vernon Maxwell, come back home to South Alabama. I flew to Atlanta, went to Clemson, and by the time we met, I met with Bill McClellan, Bobby Robinson, and Dwight Rainey. That was pretty much it. And we went through and we got to talking, and they offered me the job right there on the spot before I left. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to take this job, but I've got to go back and talk to my wife, and I do want to talk to my team." So the point is, I ended up taking the Clemson job, but I went to sign Vernon Maxwell, who was an NBA player. And if he had signed, I would have not taken the Clemson job. But that's how I got to Clemson. You asked the question.
Yeah.
I gave it to you.
So we can thank Vernon Maxwell, the former Houston Rocket, for
there's no doubt about that. And then my wife, we're sitting at the Ramada Inn, and I said, "You might think we're making the right decision." She says, "There's no doubt. This is what you need to do." That was the bookend, and that was it.
Man, 8 out of 10 seasons at Clemson, you led them to postseason play. And we were talking yesterday with Tim Beret about, of course, for me, one of the more painstaking moments in my life.
I know.
Clemson UConn, Coach. That's
no doubt.
That's one. God, I can't imagine what it was like going into the locker room after that game. Because for a 13-year-old kid from Barnwell, South Carolina, I was crying in front of a television.
Well, it was tough. It was tough on everybody. It was a shock. We'd come back so hard, so far, and it was a battle. And we hit that shot in the corner, and then we go down and we make a stop, and we get fouled with 1 point. I don't know, 3, 6, or whatever. But back in those days, they didn't have the digital thing. You had to still flip. So we were in the Meadowlands, and the ball was thrown, and the guy caught the ball in the air, came down, turned around. Well, as it turned out, the shot took like 1.8 or 9 seconds. Yeah. And if we'd had digital timing, you had to wait for somebody to press the button or flip the switch back in that day. And it wouldn't have counted today. But, sometimes you just don't catch that break. The guy made one great pass, and Sean Tyson went for it, but he didn't want to foul him, which is the worst thing you do. And the guy just made a heck of a shot. So that was a killer. And, that's one that everybody remembers. But the memory I have of that team is that they won an ACC championship. And, that had not been done. And just the euphoria of that year of seeing that team take down Duke on national television for the regular season championship, and it went all over the world. That to me is the greatest. That Clemson Duke game to secure the championship is to me the greatest moment in Clemson basketball history still today. And I know it someday there'll be some point in time where that somebody will go through that and beat that, but without question. That was, and then I think that the thing to also keep in mind, the 87 team, and this is a great story. I've never seen this happen in my life, and I don't know if it's ever happened before, but Horace Grant's team in the ACC regular season, and the fans went and cut the nets down. And I asked, what is everybody doing? Look, I mean, this is 87. I think it was after the Wake Forest game, but it's true story. We beat Wake Forest and people went and cut the nets down. And I said, what in the world is going on? We've never been runner-up in the ACC. We're cutting this thing down. And so those are just great memories. And as a matter of fact, Maury Hanks was there, one of those guys. He was on that staff. But, there were some great teams and great moments. I love Clemson. Everybody knows that with regards to it. I pull for Clemson just as, I've got my own team, and the only time I haven't pulled for Clemson is when we played them those 3 times since I've been in Coastal Carolina.
Cliff Ellis with us here on Clemson Sports Talk for a few more minutes. And Coach, I go back to, has Tim Beret ever told you that one of his buddies from Connecticut came over and shook his hand before that final shot to congratulate him while he was on the radio broadcast and jinxed the whole thing?
No, he didn't tell me that. I mean, I've heard stories. I mean, how, and I've had people on the other side of the fence tell me through the years. And, I couldn't watch the game for 10 years. My daughter, Chrissa, who's a Clemson graduate, called me one day, and it's 10 years after the fact, and 10 years after or 9 years after the fact. And we just won an SEC championship at Auburn. But she said, Dad, the Clemson Connecticut game is on ESPN Classic. And for the first time, I went back and watched it. And it's the first time that I could see it and I could deal with it because it had been so long. I've had people tell me, I've seen the game, but I've had people tell me from Connecticut that they were at a major opera in New York on Broadway. And these guys were going to the opera with their wives, but they had their earpiece on. And during the opera, the shot was made, and all of a sudden you could just hear this roar in the opera, and it just stopped an opera in New York.
Wow.
I
mean, it's really. I mean, I know it's painful to be on the losing end of it. It's still painful for me 30 years, ago. And so that's a snippet from our interview with Coach Cliff Ellis. We'll come back and wrap that up for you here on the show that shakes the Southland on a Friday afternoon. Back at it on a Friday afternoon to get a little retrospective, running it back, the heartbreak from earlier this week, conjuring up the feelings and memories for me of Clemson falling in 1990 in the NCAA tournament in the round of 16 to Connecticut. And a couple of years ago, we sat down with Clemson head coach at the time of that ball game, Cliff Ellis, currently the head coach at Coastal Carolina. And here's the continuation of that interview. Some fantastic stuff. But it's one of the better games maybe in the history of the NCAA tournament. The comeback that you guys had and just everything.
Well, how many years in a row? Now, they don't do it anymore, but I'd say 10 years in a row, and that may be stretching it. They would lead off March Madness with that dadgum play. I mean, because it did. It was one of those plays, and it was like, I think the thing that kind of moved it away was, when Valparaiso and Ole Miss or somebody, Bryce Drew or somebody, that do that length of the floor pass.
Yeah, Leitner had his against Kentucky a couple of years later.
Yeah, I said, thank goodness for a couple more plays like that. Get that thing away from me, please. But for years, CBS they had the rights at the time. They just led. I mean, every year it was like, oh my gosh, it just bring back the memory. But now you can look back and it's in NCAA basketball history, and it really turned the program. Jim Calhoun went to. It really was a pivotal play in his program because look at what Connecticut did from moving forward from there. It just boom, catapulted.
Well, and if you guys win that shot misses, who knows what happens to Clemson basketball? It would have been the first trip back to the Elite Eight since 80 and only the second one ever. You just never know. Looking back at that game, you had two big men there in the middle and Dale Davis and Eldon Campbell, but the game's really changed since that time. Give us your insights into that and how that's taken place through the years.
Well, I go back and I saw it in the early days, and I will share this story with you with regards to it. In the Sun Belt, before coming to Clemson, Vic Bubas, who had been at Duke, a genius of a man, he was a coach at Duke, but he was a commissioner of the Sun Belt. And he and I became very good friends, and he was a mentor. And again, I was the athletic director, so we talked about basketball, but we had a lot of administrative issues to talk about. Well, he came up with the idea that there ought to be a shot clock and there ought to be a three-point shot. And that this is coming in the game because at the time, back in those days, Dean Smith was holding the ball. And there were 9-4 scores.
Right.
We even held the ball in the Sun Belt tournament against Lee Rose's team at Charlotte and beat them. And it didn't want to see that kind of game. So he says, I want us to experiment. And we experimented before it came into play. And when the ACC experimented with it, they tried to make a mockery of it. And they put it like, 17 feet, something like that. It's crazy. But anyway, we had tried it because in the Sun Belt, we didn't have all those big guys, so to speak of. We had guards. And when we came to Clemson with Horace Grant, keep in mind, there was not the big 7-footer. There was not the big 6'10", 6'11" guys like we had with Campbell and Davis. We had Horace Grant, who turned out to grow and be what he was. But we in that 86-87 team, we had a team that could shoot the basketball. You had Michael Tate. You had Anthony Jenkins. You had Chris. You had so many guys that could shoot it. And the way we got to be runner-up was we had Horace down low, but we put 4 people on the perimeter, which was unheard of back in those days because everybody was playing with the power post. And we played that stretch game with those guys. This is in 86, 87.
Yeah.
And And we led, I think, now the one person that will know this because he's the best, and I've told him he's the best, Tim Murray would know this to a T. But I believe we led the country in ACC shooting. I know we led the ACC. We shot like 40-something% three-point from the three-point line. And, other teams would, Terry Holland wouldn't even let his team shoot the three. They would throw that ball.
But Virginia.
But everybody, but we all were in that mode. If you throw it, you got to throw it inside. You got to throw it inside. You got to throw it inside. And I know Terry's told me this as a fact. The first year he would not, unless the shot clock was running out, you couldn't shoot a three. Well, we lived and died with either give it to Horace or shoot the three. Give it to Horace or shoot the three. So we kind of had this thing. We were kind of ahead of the game. And we ended up with a smaller lineup than virtually anybody in the league. And we went 10-4. Back then it's 14 conference games. And we did it with the three-point shot and Horace Grant. So we started to see this thing revolve back then. And we came back, and still with Campbell and Davis, we went back to the Twin Towers. And the truth of the matter is, if we could have shot the ball, the three, we were a national championship team. Then after that, if you keep in mind, Chris Whitney's and people like that came along. And then even at Auburn, the game revolved. And I think because of that Sun Belt experience, we were kind of ahead of the game. I could see it coming. But now with Stephon Curry and those guys and these young kids coming up now, the post play, I mean, it's hard to find. It's hard to find post play. I mean, people don't teach it much anymore. I still believe in it. Now, do I believe in the twin post or double post? I think that the game has gotten too proficient from the three-point line to be able to do that. If you got a stretch four that can shoot the three, that is a big arsenal. And I saw that in 1986, 87 when we had Anthony Jenkins and some of those guys playing the four spot.
Coach, listen, we got to get you back on. As long as we're close to basketball season, I want to talk to you because you got so many great Clemson stories to share. And best of luck to you guys and the Chanticleers. Keep you doing your thing, and we're proud of you. And I know Clemson Tiger Nation is always pulling for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I love Clemson. I always will be a Clemson Tiger. We know that, and we're pulling for all the programs, and we still got a lot of friends. And we're just proud of everything that everybody's done. So, we're just proud of everything that everybody's done. So, go Tigers.
We'll hit a quick break and come back and update you from Doug Kingsmore Stadium as the Tigers are taking on Northeastern today, a little earlier than scheduled. Back at it on a chilly Friday afternoon. Go home, South Carolina weather. You're drunk. What in the world? This weather. Just a couple of days ago, it's like shorts and 85, and then now they're moving up baseball games and having to adjust schedules because of the cold weather that's coming in. Again, I kind of joked that this is a state you can live in and you can experience all four seasons in a single 24-hour period, and I don't deny that, and I don't think anything that's happened over the past 24 hours really changes that perception, in my estimation. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line. Again, we'll update you on things over at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, where the Tigers were battling Northeastern a little earlier than expected. I told you yesterday, hey, Clemson and Northeastern will be getting onto the diamond at the same time that we're joining you here on the show, but Mother Nature steps in and Clemson steps up, moving the game up a couple of hours to a 2:00 start time. So we do have some updates on that front for you here in just a few minutes. Also, don't forget tonight at 7:00, we've got the Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament getting back underway from the Barclays Center up in Brooklyn, New York, which I know a lot of you might think, man, I hate that it's there because maybe you want to go and you're not willing to go all the way to New York City for it. And I am on the flip side. I am thankful that game is being played that far away. I think the more times it's played there, the better Clemson's chances are that they could potentially make a magical run, a la what you see from Virginia Tech. But tonight's tournament gets started at 7 as Miami takes on Duke. That game is going to be on ESPN, and then that'll be followed up at 9:30 or, however much time after the first game ends if there's overtime, with North Carolina and Virginia Tech facing off. And again, both of those games on ESPN, Miami versus Duke, North Carolina versus Virginia Tech. As for Doug Kingsmore Stadium, a good matchup underway there. Clemson led 2-0 in the bottom of the third inning. Northeastern came back with a strong top of the fifth, scoring 2. Clemson answered, scoring 5 in the bottom of the fifth inning. And then Northeastern battled back in the top of the sixth. So at last check, it was 7-4. Clemson and Northeastern. I will update you on that in just a little bit. 803-450-0086. Again, Clemson Tom joins us every Friday afternoon. Looking forward to chatting it up with him to get his thoughts on everything. Plus today, Texas quarterback Deshaun Watson begins his deposition in the lawsuits against him. What could that mean over the long haul for his opportunities in the NFL? One of the things I said yesterday, and I will continue to stand by this, like when you are in the situation, first off, if you're Deshaun Watson, right, and I was talking to a lawyer about this the other day, if you're innocent, right, like if you're Deshaun Watson and you didn't do this, and this is just one of those, and look, you hate to believe that there would be people that would potentially try to manipulate the system for money or cash gain. Like you hate to believe that, but in your life, you've heard of situations like that. And conversely, you hate to not believe people who are willing to come forward and say, hey, this happened to me, right? I have a daughter. Many of you have daughters, and you want them heard and you want them validated, especially if their claims are legitimate, right? So it's like this twofold issue that I think we all kind of deal with. First being the standard of who Deshaun Watson is and how careful you probably need to be. And it's unfortunate, right? That's the thing. It's unfortunate that individuals who have a ton of money need to feel compelled to try to protect themselves from being in bad situations, situations that could develop into lawsuits. And so even if you say, yes, Swanny, but it's 22 of these allegations against Deshaun Watson, that's clear-cut evidence because of the sheer numbers. You just never know. Like if one person never says anything, does anybody ever crop up, or is it kind of a matter of like a snowball? One person pops up and somebody else says, "Oh, well, I gave him, I gave Deshaun Watson a massage before. Maybe this is my opportunity." And so you don't want to have that feeling, but you just have to be real. So the depositions potentially, and this is the thing, like Deshaun Watson, some people have said, why didn't he just clear it up? But if he's innocent, and he truly is innocent, I can't imagine, and I would ask you, could you imagine a circumstance where you are actually innocent that you would be willing to step into a courtroom and say, yep, I did that? So you just wonder over this entire period as Deshaun Watson's navigated this and his lawyers and his team, the one thing is for sure, I think he's ready to move forward. And I think that this is step one in that, in trying to figure it out. And if indeed he's guilty, the consequences should be whatever the judge sees fit. If it comes out that, man, we can't prove these things, and again, civil cases versus criminal charges are completely different. But, I think that you're kind of getting to the point for Deshaun Watson where he's just ready to kind of move on. And this will be an interesting, I would imagine, few weeks to kind of follow this story, because there have been rumors about teams that are interested in bringing Deshaun Watson in, including the Carolina Panthers, including the Seattle Seahawks. And really all that's, I guess, standing in the way is, Deshaun Watson's case moving forward. And this feels like the first true step forward. And whether or not it ends up being a positive or a negative for Deshaun Watson, I can't determine what's going to happen on that front. But what I can say is I think that we are at least finally seeing this thing begin to move towards some resolution one way or another. And I think that's valuable for Deshaun and the women who have these allegations against him, quite frankly. I think it's healthy for both parties to move forward. Final segment of hour number 1 here on the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. The Tigers continue to lead Northeastern. At last check, Clemson in the bottom of the 7th inning, up 9-4. We'll update you on the game after we finish our interview with Clemson Tom, who joins us in the next segment. Hope you enjoyed that retrospective interview with Coach Cliff Ellis. I was actually doing some Googling earlier on Coach Cliff Ellis and thinking about his career. He started coaching, if you can believe this, started coaching back in 1968 at Ruckle Junior High School in Okaloosa County, Florida. Then he was the head coach at Niceville High School, which is in Niceville, Florida, from 1969 to 71. He coached Vanguard High School, also in Florida, from 71 to 72. Then in 72, he got his opportunity at Cumberland University up in Lebanon, Tennessee. And he was there for 5 years, went to South Alabama until 84, and then spent 10 seasons coaching at Clemson. Spent 10 years at Auburn from 94 to 04. And then he has been at Coastal Carolina for 15 years. What an awesome guy. And what a great opportunity to talk with him. And, of course, he's put out some beach music. He's a big beach music guy, musician, an author. Wrote the complete book of fast break basketball. Also wrote zone press variations for winning basketball. And a book called Cliff Ellis, The Winning Edge. During his time at Clemson, Cliff Ellis led the Tigers to a 177-128 record. But that Sweet 16 team back in 1989 and 1990. Man. They won the regular season conference title. Did not win the conference championship because, of course, the conference title in the ACC goes to the tournament champion, but they did finish number 1 through the regular season. And were 26-9 overall that year. And I'm going to tell you, that loss that we listened to earlier, if I close my eyes, I feel like I am still sitting there. It was my parents' bedroom and watching that thing on a small TV. Back then you didn't have a big TV. Nobody. In 1990, nobody had a big TV. There weren't many big televisions. And for the kids riding around, you're probably going, why? Why weren't there more big TVs? Man, we got a 32-inch TV when I was in college. And it was one of the old box, 4x3. That thing weighed 80 pounds. It was enormous. It may have weighed more than 80. It took 2 people to carry it. You thought it was when you got that, you were like, man, this is the best thing since sliced bread, because quite frankly, up until that, the only thing you could get bigger, you guys will remember this, was like those rear projection or maybe even a kind of a tube. Oh, I don't know. You couldn't see them from the side. Remember those? You could not see them from the side at all. Well, I'll be honest. Until that 32-inch not flat screen, but that 32-inch glass front 4x3 came out, I mean, that was about the best you could get. But they weighed 1,000 pounds. My dad had a Pro Scan TV. We had a Pro Scan at our house when I was growing up, finally, at one point. And I'm telling you, 2 men in a truck couldn't pick that thing up. You needed 3 men in a truck. Holy cow. Now, I can, if we're going to the beach and we're not sure if the place we're staying has, I mean, most places are going to have a single TV. But, if I think, well, we might want to take a second television for the kids to stream Netflix on or do whatever they do, video games, I can carry my son's television down the stairs in one hand. That easy. 32 inches, one hand. And not even feel like I got it, not really even under my arm. Like I can hold it, I can put it in my hand and hold it like above my head. They're so light. But back then, that TV in my parents' bedroom watching Tate George was probably at best 19 inches, at best. And I just remember thinking, there's no way he got that shot off. And I said to my dad, like I mentioned earlier, I said, we got to call CBS. I was actually crying that we had to call CBS. I was heartbroken because that Clemson team that year, I don't remember the final scores, but they had beaten BYU in a comeback fashion. They had beaten LaSalle and Lionel Simmons, or the L train, I think they called him. I mean, they had come back in 2 ball games, and they were incredibly exciting comebacks. And that was a UConn team that Clemson should have beaten, and the Tigers would have been facing Duke for the right to go to the Final Four. Instead, I believe that was the game where Christian Laettner hits a game winner over UConn, and the rest is history. The pain and the agony. The agony and the pain. 803-450-0086. Speaking of pain and agony, for Gamecock fans at least, the next 20 minutes is Clemson Tom joins us. Stay with us.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set! Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you. And on a Friday, we always hang out with our buddy, Clemson Tom, the voice of the people. Follow him on Twitter at Clemson Tom CT. Big guy. Happy Friday. How's the weather in Florida, man? It is cold here in the state of South Carolina today.
I'm eating an ice cream cone. I'm in shorts and flip-flops and a Clemson football shirt I got from Dabo. I'm heading to the golf course to go watch your favorite golfer do some practice. So, yeah, man, it's great. It's not cold at all.
Tom, kiss my rear end. All right, so, all right, let me ask you, what flavor ice cream? I think that's most important here.
Let me see. It was, you know how you pour chocolate over it and the chocolate hardens?
Yeah.
It had that over,
magic shell.
Vanilla. Yeah, magic shell. And it had some nuts on top of that. And the vanilla ice cream has laced with caramel. so it's delicious. And it's in a cone,
Yeah.
and the interior of the cone is chocolate.
It sounds amazing, Tom, by the way. I hope
It's not bad.
I hope our favorite golfer's doing good. He's keeping up with the schoolwork too, right? He understands the schoolwork comes first.
Oh yeah, he's on spring break though, so okay, it's time to live that life.
I hear you, boss man. Speaking of living the life, Tom, I know that this past weekend for the South Carolina Gamecock baseball fans, they were not living the life as Clemson pulled out the brooms and pulled the sweep. You're a big baseball guy. You're on social media posting about baseball games. Give me your thoughts, man, on just, the weekend that was, I guess, about 7 days ago as it kicked off last Friday.
I loved it. I had all my employees wear their Clemson shirts on Friday, like we mentioned last week. Man, it's to sweep them in baseball. That's just ripping out their souls. Because besides women's basketball, that's all they have. They're not good in any other sport. So to sweep them, it was amazing. I'm still giddy. I still love it.
Listen, I'm with you. I think that this is a key year for Monty Lee. I know you have been on the record here and said, listen, you're a big fan, you're a big proponent for Monty Lee. You're not one of those people that is, at home pressing the panic button about Monty Lee. And
no, not at all.
So far this season, it would seem like things are going to go pretty well for Clemson this year on the diamond.
Oh, yeah. I'm not worried. You shouldn't be worried. Young people shouldn't be worried. Old people shouldn't be worried. You need to be worried about how much these ticket prices are going to be when we go to a super regional. That's what you need to be worried about.
Put it in the books. Put it on your calendar.
Calling it. I'm calling it now, buddy. Put it on the calendar.
Clemson Tom is on Twitter at Clemson Tom. Tom, also this week, I ran in hour number 1 an archived interview with Cliff Ellis. Now, Cliff Ellis and Clemson were in the 1990 Sweet 16, and Tate George hit a last-second buzzer beater. 1 second on the clock, inbound, full court. I played the highlight. Still pains me. The loss, though, in the ACC tournament with Virginia Tech hitting a 3 at the buzzer to walk it off and win. And then to see Virginia Tech last night dominate Notre Dame and play in the semifinals of the ACC tournament. Tom, I know Clemson and basketball and miraculous runs in March don't fit very well together, but wouldn't it have been nice to have won that game and had a chance to play last night against Notre Dame and maybe make it to the semifinals?
Of course. Of course. I got a funny story about old Tate George. When I was younger, living down in South Florida, I was doing some real estate deals going down in Boca Raton. One of the girls in my office dated Tate George and actually had him come by the office. And the first thing he did was laugh at me.
No.
And I said, I don't know if you even got it. Yeah, because we had a little trash talk going on. I don't know, Swanny. I don't know if you know me too well, but I like to do some friendly jabs and some friendly trash talk occasionally.
Tom,
and so old Tate knew about me. Do what?
Well, it's that's one that's tough to erase because first
he gave me a signed basketball card, and I think I still have it somewhere, man.
The thing about it, Cliff Ellis said in the interview, he basically said, the thing about that, like, Dak blame shot or whatever he called it, I can't remember his exact phrasing, was that they played it at the beginning of the NCAA tournament for, like, the next 15 years. Like, they played that shot.
I mean, it was a heck of a shot, man. Let me ask you a question. All bias aside, did he get it off or no?
If you start the clock when he catches the ball, no, he does not get the shot off, right?
Exactly. That's the line I'm looking for because they didn't start the clock when he caught it. Exactly.
And there's no review. Like back then, there was no review.
Home cooking?
They were in New Jersey, Meadowlands, and I mean Connecticut, New Jersey. They're probably mafia. They're more mafia ties, I'm sure, between Connecticut and New Jersey than between New Jersey and South Carolina, I would think.
Forget about it.
He's on Twitter at Clemson Tom, hanging out with us here on a Friday afternoon. So, Tom, spring ball, football. I know you get decently excited, but not great. You told us that a week ago. You like the tailgating scene of spring ball maybe more than anything, but by all accounts, man, it sounds like DJ Uiagalelei is looking good, trimmed down, a little bit more light on his feet. I think Dabo Swinney said he was 16 of 7 or 16 of 18 in a scrimmage the other day. Looked as good as he's looked. Are you buying the early hype, or is this just hyperbole?
Both. I'm buying it, and it's hyperbole. What's he going to do? What's he supposed to do? Come out and say he's horrible? I know, you know what I mean? He's going to come out and say exactly what he needs to say, and and I'm okay with that. I think we all should be okay with that. But let's see what happens in game time. That's all I care about. I mean, we all knew that one guy that could do anything in practice, and then all of a sudden, the clock strikes. It's time to go. Can't put together anything. So I just want to see what happens in game time. I hope he comes out and lights it up. I hope he comes out and is the second best quarterback that's ever touched a football at Clemson. That's what I hope. But until then, we just have to wait and see. And we've got a good season upon us. We got a lot of guys coming back. I'm excited about the wide receivers looking like they're supposed to be all pros according to Dabo. But the next man up. And we're going to have to go from, I don't know, whatever they eat in the Pac-12, but apparently we got some Texas brisket on to the melee. So
follow Tom again on Twitter at Clemson Tom. Tom, I think your phone might be breaking up. You with me? Oh, no. Tom.
Hey, I went to a dead zone.
There we go. Listen, we got you, brother. We're rolling along with Clemson Tom. Again, follow that man on Twitter at Clemson Tom. And so, Tom, I also saw this week that Hunter Renfrow is staying in Dabo Swinney's basement while he's in town. Got his whole family in Dabo Swinney's basement. I would imagine that Dabo Swinney's basement is a lot different than most basements I've ever been in.
Yeah, it's got a lot of Alabama stuff in it, actually. He's got a lot of Alabama memorabilia, but he's got a lot of Clemson memorabilia as well.
My Aunt Tot's basement smelled like mildew. It had beads on the on the door, a drum set, some ping pong, a treadmill that looked like it would kill you. But I gotta imagine that Dabo Swinney's basement is better than most.
Of course, but I mean, it's Dabo. I'm pretty sure Dabo and your aunt were working with two different tax returns. I'm sure the basement's got its own little kitchen. The basement's got its own bathroom. I'm sure it's great besides all the Alabama memorabilia on the wall, but whatever. I'm always going to be sour about all the Bama stuff up on the walls, but it is what it is. I'm honestly surprised Hunter don't have a house up there yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got a coin like that.
Founding father county or something. I know he's been up there forever.
You would think that Hunter Renfrow would have an investment property there in Clemson. Why not? Right? I mean, this guy's a Pro Bowler.
I mean, we just got ours. Shoot, Hunter, give me a call. We just sold the lake house at Kiwi. I can hook you up with a good realtor. Actually, come move in next door to me. It'll be fine. We'll have a great time. The kids can play. It'll be great. We can sit back and talk about old football stories. Tell me what it was like when they all had leather helmets.
Clemson. Hunter Renfrow was in Clemson when they built Lake Hartwell, if that tells you anything.
Oh, man. I remember when Xander met Hunter. I had to tell Xander that he played football for Clemson. He's like, really? It's like, yeah, I know he doesn't look it, but trust me, that boy would put on their backs given the chance. Seriously, one of the best route runners to ever do it is Hunter Renfrow.
It's funny. Tim Beret was telling me a story. I don't think it was on air, but Tim Beret was telling me a story. They were at one of these Atlantic Coast Conference deals where everybody gets together, and the media sits down and interviews these guys or whatever. And they were in an elevator, and Hunter Renfrow got on. Tim's in the elevator with a lady, whatever they're talking. Hunter Renfrow gets off, and she says, "Oh, that is the nicest guy." She's like, "Now, what department does he work in?" And Tim's like, that's Hunter Renfrow. She's like, you got to be kidding me. He looks like
Yeah,
a lawyer.
He looks like a lawyer. I'm Hunter. I'm from the compliance department. I'm going to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Just making sure everything's going good around here. Oh, man.
That's it. Hunter Renfrow, the whistleblower.
Clemson Tom joins us here on Friday afternoons as we always kind of let our hair down, well, as much hair as I can. I can't let mine down too far. And we chatted up about everything going on in the world of your Clemson Tigers. And Tom, I know one of the other major storylines this year, and you and I obviously have kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's that defensive front. And I know you're just giddy about it. This week we got a chance to hear from Nick Eason, who's coaching the defensive tackles, the former Clemson Tiger, had a lot of great things to say. One of the things that he brought up that I thought was really important is he said, look, this is a guy that, won a Super Bowl, coached in the NFL, coached collegiately at Auburn. He said that, he'd been around a lot of guys and he was just glowing about Wes Goodwin. And that to me, like, I know you said earlier about Dabo, well, you got to say what you got to say, but I just find it hard to believe that there would be a ton of non-truths. Like if you were around the guy, you say, well, I think I've learned a little bit, but when you're just gushing about what you've learned and what you picked up from him, doesn't that make you feel like, hey, maybe Wes Goodwin's the truth?
I think he is. I mean, you're replacing literally a legend when it comes to defensive coordinators. Let's be honest. But to step in, everyone's had nothing but great things to say about him. And it's not like the Venables left them with the cupboard bare. The talent is there. The foundation is set. If he's done anything, he's learned from Venables. But apparently this guy was ready to become a defensive coordinator, not too long ago. So next man up, that's the Clemson way. That's how we've been doing it. So, I mean, it is what it is. But, I mean, I'm excited for Wes. I want to see what he can do. I've been a fan of him. He's a good guy. So I'm ready to see him get out there, call some plays. But the one thing I definitely want to see when we crown him as the next greatest is, is he going to have that Venables? Venables was always great at just picking the right play at the right time. A la every close game we've ever had when the defense came out. Look at Notre Dame. Look at everything. Look at
Notre Dame. You talking about the rain game? The game in the rain? Yeah. The
greatest game I've watched in person was that one. But is he going to be able to call the right plays, like Venables did? That was one thing that when it came down to it, I was like, man, I don't care what the score is. Just we got Venables. Like it's okay. Let them score 100 points. We're going to score 102 because of our offense, but Venables is going to stop them when it's time to. We had that bend but don't break defense, and when it was time to, when it was the 12th round of a heavyweight fight, and there's 1 minute left, and they have the ball, I'm like, hey, we're going to be fine. We got Venables. So he's going to call the right play. He studied the other team. He knew what the offensive coordinator was going to call before the offensive coordinator even called it. That was what made him so great. So I'm going to see if Wes has that attributes, attributed to him, and let's see what he can do. But until then, I'm excited for him.
Back to Nick Eason for a minute, Tom. He also was talking about how a lot of guys would tell him, hey, recruiting and how difficult that is on a coach. And, it is something I don't think we really think about as being quote unquote difficult, but apparently it's a lot tougher than maybe I thought. All that being said, Eason went on to say how he, was from a small town, just 62 people. He had conversations throughout his life at the Piggly Wiggly, how he thinks that'll help him. I think people thought when Todd Bates left, right, that it was going to be maybe a step back. Is it possible that Nick Eason actually ends up being a step forward?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just look at his resume, though. I mean, his resume is going to speak for itself.
It's true. I mean, listen. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to think. I'm like, I mean, his resume's already there. He knows how to play the game. He's already coached it before. I'm sorry, this big alligators came up on me on the golf course. This is hilarious. That's why I was skipping my word. It's like an 8-footer just came out of the water looking at me.
Throw him your ice cream. Throw him your ice cream.
The ice cream's been eaten, brother. No, but he's got the resume. He's got everything he needs to be successful, and he's already been successful. This isn't just like, hey, this is our first time ever doing it. Let's just hope for the best. He's done it. He's been successful. And now he's with a good team with good players. What more do you need? He's got the right gumbo. He's got the right ingredients for it. Just put it on the stove and cook it. He'll be fine. So I'm excited for him. At this point, we gave him the keys to a brand new Porsche, and we said, don't wreck it. Let's see what he does.
Tom, speaking of gumbo, Dabo Swanny now in the restaurateur business. Walk-Ons Sports Bistro announced that Dabo Swanny will be a franchisee with the restaurant. It's a Louisiana-based company. They'll be opening up 15 units in the Carolinas as part of a multi-restaurant development agreement, which includes Clemson and the second location in Myrtle Beach that are already
There's one in Orlando. There's one
under
in Orlando.
construction. Give us the scoop on the Walk-On Sports Bistro.
Yeah, there's one here in Orlando. It's not bad. It's just a bigger type of sports restaurant. It's just big. It's new. It's got some good financial backing to it. Yeah, I like it. It's not going to wow you. It's not going to knock your socks off. You're like, oh my God, a sports bistro. I mean, it is what it is, but it's good. TVs everywhere. The one here in Orlando, I think, is multi-leveled. Think of like a what Buffalo Wild Wings wanted to be. This is what this place is. It's Buffalo Wild Wings went to college, got a master's degree, and started cashing real checks, and now they upgraded their facilities. That's it.
Sounds good to me.
That's
Now,
the best analogy.
Well, with the spelling of bistro being, the typical Louisiana-ish, I don't even know if that's a word, but the EAUX. I mean, do we get gumbo and jumbo or whatever, gumbo and what,
I don't know. I don't know if I'm sure.
Can I get some shrimp etouffee? I mean, or is the
I know they have cold beers, Swanny. I didn't really try the food out too well. I was there to watch the game. I wasn't there to critique the chef, but I'm pretty sure they've got gumbo on there if it's a Louisiana-based company. I don't think they're going to have a muffalado, which I love a good muffalada. I'm trying to think what else is a good one. Crawfish. I don't think they're going to have crawfish, but they might. If they do, it's probably frozen. I wouldn't eat it. But let's just see what it is. It could end up being really good. You know what they need to do if they really want to get successful and get put on the map? They need to be a sponsor of your show. That's what they should do.
Dabo Swanny sponsoring my show. That sounds like a beautiful thing. Tom, buddy, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the ice cream and the alligators, and we will talk to you next Friday.
Hey, buddy, stay warm. Stay warm. I'm in shorts right now. Love it.
You make me sick.
All right.
Clemson Tom here on a Friday afternoon. 803-450-0086. We'll give you an update from Doug Kingsmore Stadium when we get back on a Friday afternoon. It is a final from Doug Kingsmore Stadium. The Clemson Tigers advance to 14-0 on the season, a 9-6 victory over Northeastern today. Mac Anglin moves to 3-0 on the year with the win. And Clemson gets the JOBDONE, say it with me, the job done. 9-6, the final. Northeastern getting 2 runs in the top of the ninth to trim it back. Clemson, though, took a comfortable 9-4 lead into the ninth inning and come away with another W. And I'm not going to lie, I am enjoying this Clemson Tiger baseball team. They just, listen, are they going to come up on some struggles probably at some point? Yeah, I think so. But they hit the ball well. The fielding has not been a major concern as of yet. You got some hiccups here and there, but Benjamin Blackwell makes another great play today defensively. And, when you can back up your pitchers with solid defense, when you can do that, man, I'll tell you what, the sky is the limit, and it definitely feels like this Clemson Tiger baseball team has a good season looming at now 14-0. Again, I think I haven't seen anything on a change in the schedule for tomorrow's matchup. Let me just – it's funny because then again, I can say it now and it could switch in 10 minutes, but I believe the game tomorrow still scheduled for a 3 o'clock start. I know the softball tournament had to make some shifts in their schedule. The final game between Clemson and Northeastern will take place at 1 o'clock on Sunday. So your Clemson Tigers coming away with a victory at Doug Kingsmore Stadium today. 3-game homestand. They got a midweek game on Tuesday against Georgia State at 6 o'clock. And then their first Atlantic Coast Conference Series at home. They'll open it up with the Miami Hurricanes next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They'll take on the Miami Hurricanes. And this, again, is a Northeastern team. Let's not forget, a Northeastern team that swept NC State. Clemson will host NC State April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So an NC State ball club in the Atlantic Coast Conference that was swept by this team. Clemson gets the job done. Tonight in the Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament, Miami and Duke face off at 7 o'clock on ESPN from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And North Carolina will take on Virginia Tech at 9:30 as well. 803-450-0086 text line and phone line. Again, thank you for hanging out with us and being a part of the show that shakes the Southland. It is always fun chatting it up with you and having a good time. And again, appreciate Clemson Tom for joining us here just a few minutes ago. I always love getting the chance to catch up with him to talk about your Clemson Tigers. And again, a lot of fun, just kind of laughing and having a good time. Hour 1, we led you off with an awesome and fun interview with former Clemson Tiger basketball coach Cliff Ellis. Coach Ellis talking about Clemson and that shot against Tate George in the NCAA tournament many moons ago. As for tonight, however, other matchups going on in the world of college basketball this evening to kind of keep you abreast of what is taking place. Coming up at 6 o'clock, Mississippi State's taking on Tennessee at the SEC Tournament. You've also got a little later this evening in the Big Ten at 6:30, Michigan State taking on Wisconsin. In the Big 12, TCU and Kansas will face off at 7. That's the same start time as Miami and Duke at the Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament. Then at 8 o'clock, you got Vanderbilt and Kentucky in the SEC Tournament. And then you've also got Penn State and Purdue at the Big Ten Tournament. You've got Oklahoma taking on Texas Tech in the Big 12 at 9:30. Virginia Tech and North Carolina also tipping off at 9:30 tonight in the ACC. Then a late night game between two top 20 teams on FS1 as Southern Cal will take on UCLA at the Pac-12 tournament. And there are a handful and host of other matchups going on around the country, including some that have already wrapped earlier today. Texas A&M knocked off Auburn 67-62. You also had Indiana today knocking off the Fighting Illini 65-63. Houston down Cincinnati 69-56. And Iowa beat Rutgers at the Big Ten tournament 84-74. So the ACC already in their semifinals, which means tomorrow for the Atlantic Coast Conference, they will have the championship game. My hunch is it'll be Duke and North Carolina. And I'm not saying, hey, this is what's great about it, but just a couple of days ago, last Saturday, 1 week ago, Duke and North Carolina playing in Durham in what was Coach K's final home game at Cameron Indoor, and the possibility of those two teams hooking up to determine the ACC tournament is not some far-fetched or outlandish idea. What we do know, however, on that front is, though, if that is the case, it will be a highly anticipated rematch, and one would venture to guess that the Duke Blue Devils, who not only suffered through the loss, obviously, to your rival, but the bitter pain of watching the Tar Heels leave the court at Cameron Indoor with a win in Coach K's last appearance, that probably has stuck in the craw of those guys over in Durham for the past week. But both teams both teams. Duke has to get past Miami, and then North Carolina has to get past Virginia Tech in order to make that happen. But rest assured, if it does, shades of 1 week ago will certainly be brought, I think, will certainly be brought up. 803-450-0086. You know, the text line and the phone line are always good for you. Why do you say that, Swanny? Well, I'll be honest, because I want to hear from you over the weekend. I want to hear your thoughts on everything going on in the world of college sports, especially as we move closer and closer to March Madness. With a quick break, we'll come back with more of the show that shakes the Southland here on a chilly Friday afternoon. Rolling along, Clemson Sports Talk on Twitter at Clemson Sports. Do you follow us yet? 24,000, almost 25,000 other people do. We'd love to have you be a part of the show, hang out, have a good time. Again, a busy weekend up in Tiger Town. Just talking a few minutes ago, obviously Clemson with a victory today over Northeastern on the diamond, a big win for Monty Lee and this Clemson Tiger team. They are 9-6. Excuse me, a 9-6 victory. They are 14-0 on the year. A couple of more matchups against Northeastern, as I mentioned. But if you talk about the totality of the weekend and what's going on, don't forget you've also got softball coming up as Clemson is hosting Illinois and Liberty. Those matchups get set to start tomorrow at noon for Clemson. They'll take on Illinois at 2:30 tomorrow. Then on Sunday, they'll face Illinois at 12:30, and they'll take on Liberty on Sunday at 3 o'clock. Now, that entire tournament gets rolling tomorrow morning at 9:30 with Illinois and Liberty facing off at McWhorter Stadium. And the Illini and Liberty will face off on Sunday at 10 a.m. So the two visiting teams will play the early game both days against one another. And then Clemson will play Liberty at noon on Saturday and then play Illinois at 2:30 on Saturday. They'll play Illinois at 10 on Sunday. Excuse me, they'll play Illinois at 12:30 on Sunday, and they'll play Liberty at 3 on Sunday. And the Tigers are 13-6 heading into the 2022 Tiger Invitational. And yesterday, of course, here on the program, we heard from John Rittman. Coach Rittman has solidified himself as the winningest head coach through his first 100 games in, I guess, any Clemson sports history. Clemson softball will play its 100th game tomorrow in that 2:30 matchup against Illinois. The 100th game will be played almost 5 years to the date that the program was announced, being an addition back in March 14th of 2017. And through the first 100 games, the softball team is pacing the tie, the best start by any program at Clemson. Women's tennis is the lone sport with more wins currently, clocking in at 78 of their first 100. So I said earlier, let me double check this. My dad, I just got a text message a few minutes ago from my dad. I said Clemson baseball was 14-0. They're 13-0. My dad said, I think they're 13-0. All right, 13-0. What was I must have already been choked. Oh, I got it. I know what it is now. The East Tennessee State game was canceled. So there you go. 13-0. They have won 14 games in a row dating back to 2021, however. So there is the rub, if you will. The 8th longest winning streak in Clemson history. The Tigers broke a 2-2 tie earlier today with 5 runs in the 5th inning on their way to a 9-6 victory over Northeastern at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. In the 3rd inning, it was Dylan Brewer who lined a run-scoring single, scoring Tyler Corbett. And then he scored, on Tyler Corbett's single. The Huskies scored 2 two-out runs in the top of the 5th inning to tie the ball game. Clemson then responded with 5 runs in the bottom of the 5th inning to regain the lead. Cooper Engel extended his hitting streak, as I mentioned earlier, to 13 games with a run-scoring single. And then Clemson plated 2 more runs before Max Wagner smashed a 2-run homer, his 3rd of the year. Mac Anglin, 3-0 now, gets the victory, and the series continues on Saturday at 3 o'clock. You can watch that over on the ACC network. How about the corrector? My dad, the corrector, 13-0, Swanny. Thank you, Swanny. Let's see. What else do we have here? So just got this text message about Deshaun Watson situation we mentioned earlier. This says, the news about no criminal charges takes the wind out of the sails for any civil case, Swanny. The grand jury looks at probable cause. Civil cases is a preponderance, the higher standard. The grand jury typically has more limited info than a civil trial, but still will have an impact. So keep your eye on that situation. I am not a lawyer, nor did I stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night, but I'm assuming based off of that, the legal ease, that makes it seem like things might go pretty well, I guess, for Deshaun. I mean, that's kind of the way I was reading it. The fact that the market is heating up and people were saying he could end up with the Panthers maybe before, the next few days or whatever timeline that could be. Maybe so. Maybe this is finally the clearing up that Deshaun Watson needed. And again, I think you look at it, as I said, I want to live in a world where we are innocent until we are proven guilty. I also understand that we live in a world where things like this can take place, and people in powerful positions like Deshaun Watson can take advantage of that spot. I also understand that people who have wealth can be targeted. Like it's this whole thing that I don't even really like talking about it, quite frankly, because it's a little bit of an uncomfortable subject. But the reality is, based off of the situation that we see unfolding today, at least from my limited amount of knowledge, it seems like it's a positive. Deshaun Watson will not face criminal charges after a grand jury in Harris County, Texas, declined to indict him on Friday. After a Harris County, this is a quote, after a Harris County grand jury was presented with all the evidence that had the opportunity to hear all the witnesses, the grand jurors declined to indict Deshaun Watson. Grand jury proceedings are secret by law, so no information related to their inquiry may be disclosed. That was the spokesman for the Harris County Attorney's Office. Seems like some really good news for Deshaun Watson. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Be a part of the show anytime, any place, anywhere. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to hit a quick break here, as we always do at this time, by the way. And we'll bounce back with you on the Friday edition and put a big old bow on the show that shakes the Southland.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment on a Friday afternoon, the show that shakes the Southland, the People Show, Clemson Sports Talk, where the people have resoundingly, if that's even a word, the people have resoundingly said, Swanny, Clemson baseball is 13-0, not 14. Right. I forgot about the canceled game. Cut me some slack. No, actually, I don't know if I was thinking they were already 13-0. I can't. I'll be honest. I got so much going on right now. I don't know. Come here from Sikkim, quite frankly. 803-450-0086. Text line and phone line. That is available to you anytime, any place, and, of course, anywhere. We will keep you updated on any potential game time changes, etc. over the weekend on Twitter at Clemson Sports. You have women's golf all day, all weekend at the Clover Cup. You got Notre Dame and Clemson women's tennis taking place today. You got track and field at the Indoor National Championships. You got women's tennis against UNC Wilmington tomorrow. Softball matchups with Liberty and Illinois looming. Men's soccer will take on Maryland tomorrow at 3 o'clock. You've got the Citadel taking on men's tennis taking on the Citadel tomorrow. Women's tennis facing Louisville. Busy weekend up in Tigertown. Also a busy weekend on the recruiting trail as well, as Clemson will host several marquee players as the recruiting season moves forward. Jeremiah Cobb, a 4-star running back out of the state of Alabama, expected to be on campus this weekend as well. It also would appear that Jaden Davis, who is a 5-star prospect out of Charlotte, North Carolina, quarterback, is expected to be in Clemson this weekend as well. And, you know, when you talk about 5-star talent being literally in your backyard, the way that Jaden Davis is, he's a 2024 kid. You know, I think that's one of the things that you've got to, you got to jump on and at least start to establish a bigger and better relationship with that type of talent, especially, again, given the 2-hour or so range in which this young man is playing football, right? Like this, in some respects, you know, if you talk about the year with Cade Klubnik coming in and, you know, eventually Cade taking over, this would be like the perfect kind of fit. A 2024 kid gives a little gap between studs, hopefully, you know, if you're fortunate enough to have that happen. Jordan Shipp, I believe, who is also a teammate, who is also a teammate of Jaden Davis, is also supposed to be in Tigertown. He's again a 4-star receiver. Xavier Hamilton, 4-star out of, I believe, the state of Florida, going to be coming in and attending this weekend. Cam Pringle, who is an offensive lineman, offensive tackle, out of the Low Country, I think down near maybe Woodland High School, is going to be in attendance. Also, 5-star offensive lineman Daniel Calhoun out of Roswell, Georgia, 6'6", 330-plus pounder, supposed to be in Clemson this weekend. A guy that I really like, Walt Claire Flynn, out of Grayson High School over in Loganville, Georgia, expected to be in Tigertown. So a busy recruiting weekend. Lots of other big names also on the docket expected in town. Grant Godfrey, the 4-star linebacker out of North Gwinnett over there in Georgia. So, look, a laundry list of big names, future big names. They may not be big names today. They'll be big names. Some of them will be big names down the road. So, it is a big weekend for this Clemson Tiger football team moving forward as they bring a ton of talent onto the gridiron again, or on the campus. Again, tonight, the ACC tournament, I am still heartbroken that the Clemson Tigers are not playing. Our poll question is still up. We're not going to change it. And here's why. Like Georgia, I didn't even mention this earlier. Georgia fired their head coach, who they were so excited about Tom Crean when he arrived at Georgia. I mean, they were super pumped to bring in Tom Crean. They fired him yesterday after 4 seasons. Tom Crean out in Athens. Didn't cut the mustard. Clemson still with Brad Brownell in tow. And you know where I stand. I've crossed over into the land of indifference on Brad Brownell. Keep him, don't keep him. I don't care. I don't know. Like I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, who could you get this better? I'm not sure. Who could you get this worse? I'm not sure either. So it might not matter either way. But in our Kaufman's fan poll, call your shot. Does Clemson make a head coaching change this year? Let us know. Go vote right now. We got to get out of here. Thank you so much for hanging out. Appreciate each and every one of you. Tell your friends and neighbors, and most importantly, your friends' neighbors, especially if they have Clemson bumper stickers and swag on their car about our show. Until Monday, as always, y'all take care now, and go Tigers.